Hello friends, Kim Schofield here. Welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be talking about how to make cards using small images. So these are the three cards that I'm going to be demonstrating today. And this is using a stamp set from Sweet and Sassy, my all-time favorite stamp set. I love it, love it, love it. This is called You and Me. It's actually an older set. It came out a couple of years ago, but we are highlighting some of the older sets on our blogs, and I'm super excited about this one. And the great news about this stamp set, I'm giving this one away. So the one you see here, I am going to be giving it away. You have to head over to my blog. The address is in the description below, and leave a comment and you'll be entered into a drawing for a free stamp set. So I have all of the images from this stamp set. They are so cute. And I'm using my Misty just in case I need to get, I need to double stamp, which I did. So I'm using a Memento ink pad because I'm going to be coloring these with my Copic markers. And so I want to have an ink pad that is Copic marker friendly. So you can see here, I've colored them in. I didn't do anything crazy. I'm not a super, shader. Just did the basics and colored those in. And then I fussy cut them out. And I'm going around all of the edges with a dark, this is almost a black, a dark gray Copic marker, just to hide any imperfections. And this makes it look really nice and finished. And then I have some just standard note cards already cut down to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I have this little piece here that I die cut with this like a notepad die up at the top there. You can see that kind of looks like it's been ripped out of a notepad. So my idea was to kind of make this look like a legal pad, which isn't really spiral bound. You wouldn't see that kind of top if you tore off a paper from a legal notepad, but that's all right. This is my own version. That's what I'm making it look like. So I am coloring this up using Distress Oxide inks, which are my fave. And now I've got this stencil from Donna Downey, which I was like, hey, it's got these nice little lines. Your stencils can do double duty. So I am going in, you could see when I first put down that yellow color, I left a lot of white in the middle. So now when I go ahead and add these little stripes, you'll be able to see those a little bit better. So these are basically the lines of my notepad. And all I did was flip that stencil over, line that back up again with the area that I already shaded, that I already stenciled, and am adding the other lines in. So they'll kind of meet in the middle. And you can see that little, looks like a zebra. So now I'm coming in, I have a blue gel pen, and I'm kind of very loosely outlining those yellow stripes that I made using my ruler there and just going along. They're not perfect, they're kind of wonky. That's the way I like it. And so now I have just cleaning off the edge of my ruler from that blue ink. And so now I'm coming in with pink. This is kind of a reddish pink. And the legal notepads always has those two red lines down the center. And look at that. It looks like a little piece of paper. Isn't it so cute? I love it. I was in love with this. So I'm just so impressed with myself, apparently. So I am going to add a little bit of brown at the top. So legal notepads have kind of a brown edge at the top of them. And all I did was, Google, what does a legal notepad look like? Oh, yeah, that's right. And of course I have to add some brown on the edges because, well, that's what I do. And so now when I'm finished, I have this little notepad thing, which is so cute. Oh, and so I'm not even talking about, not talking about small images here. That is supposed to be the goal. Let me tell you here, I'm just adding a little bit of background. This is a typewriter text also from Sweet and Sassy. And I'm kind of picking up some of the ink because I don't want this to be a solid image across the notepad. So this is going to be kind of messy, sketchy. Looks like it's been typed on paper in the background. So my first tip for these small images, because these are really small images, is to create, right, I've got some visual interest going on in the background. First of all, I've got this little notepad sheet that I made, and then I'm die cutting. A lot of the pieces I'm die cutting. So this creates kind of this highlight for this smaller image. So I've got that small image that's going to be highlighted on my white circle. And then now I've got some interest going on the background with that piece that looks like the notepad paper, right? Because if I was to use that image just in the middle of kind of a white card, it would probably get a little bit lost. But now um, having this piece of paper in the background creates a little bit more interest for the eye. So I am stamping this on the circle, and that's because these images have the image and the sentiment together. So I could cut it apart, but that's all right. I don't need to, because some of these images, like the coffee cup, has some of the steam coming up, and I cut that off. And so by restamping it, you're able to get the sentiment there. And then I just cover that piece up with my the piece that I fussy cut. So now I'm kind of, messing up my paper a little, putting some little tiny cuts, and then I fold those edges back, and that makes that paper look nice and worn. And so now I have some foam tape, so I'll pop this up onto my circle that's highlighting my little image. So this is "You and me go together like peanut butter and jelly." And so this is so fun because my youngest, so I made this for my kids and my husband. My youngest is obsessed with peanut butter and jelly. It's literally what he eats every single day. I offer him, do you want this? No. This? No. Mom, please just give me peanut butter and jelly. So this is a perfect card for him. And then I have the sentiment stamped on a piece of black cardstock and just heat embossed with white embossing powder. And then I just created, I just hand cut a little flag there. And look at that. So card number 1, small, oh yeah, we can't forget the sequins because, hey, it's good stuff. You gotta have a little bling. Even if it's going to boys, it's all right. So it's another way to add some visual interest with a small image. So I've got a lot going on this card, even though it's a pretty clean and simple card. There's a lot of white space in the background. My image is not lost because it has a little home on that white die cut. And then I've got something going on in the background. So it all really flows together. So I added some glossy accents onto my labels. And then I actually took some Nuvo drops and put them across the top of the jar so it kind of looked like a silver jar, and so a lid. So I gave it some nice dimension and a little bit of shine. And then you'll be able to see the finished card here. It's a little close up. And you can head to my blog afterwards for more pictures as well. So now this is the one that says "You and me to go together like coffee and donuts." So this one's for my hubby because, well, we both love coffee, and if I have to be honest, we both love donuts. So I have this stamp. I will link to it, and it kind of has like some splatters, and it looks like coffee stains, which I completely forgot I had this stamp in my stash, and I was like, oh, I have something that will look like a coffee ring. That'll be perfect. So I'm just stamping this a little bit in the background. I'm using craft cardstock, and I am using archival ink. This is potting soil from Wendy Vecchi. And just adding, here's that solid ring, and then there's some smaller ones. You can see I made a little boo-boo on the right-hand side. I dropped my stamp, and so you've got that light image there. You can kind of see the stamped image, so I figured, all right, well, let's go for it then, because I didn't want to start this over. So just adding, let's go ahead and put the stamps on there. All right, so what am I going to do with my second stamp? What is my second idea for highlighting small images? Well, it's very similar to the first. I am using a tiny little tag, and again, stamping the "You and me go together," and like coffee and donuts. So I'm stamping the sentiment and the whole thing, the coffee and everything, the little image. And again, I'll pop that image up. I have some foam tape there. So again, I've got some interest there going on in the background. It's not just really plain. And then my small image is being highlighted on my small tag. And I cut that tag with a Tim Holtz die that has some tiny tags, I think it's called. So I have some seam binding here, and I'm just going to color this up with some distress ink. This stuff is great. It takes color wonderfully. So this kind of tends to be the only ribbon I have now because I can just use this for, you can make it any color that you want. And so I just put down a little bit of brown, a little bit of blue distress ink, and then you can dry that with your fingers. I kind of keep crunching it up, and that gives it a nice wrinkled texture. You can also ball this stuff up, leave it off on the corner of your craft sheet and let it dry on its own. And or go ahead and heat set that. Of course, be careful not to burn your fingers because it does get hot holding that heat gun. So now my little tag is just about finished, but of course, brown on the edges. We all knew this was coming, right? Especially because I've got craft on craft on craft, right? I don't have any other color cardstock going on here. So by inking those edges, it makes it pop up off of the other craft cardstock, even though I'm going to use foam tape. So then I even decided, hey, I need to ink the edges of this thing that I already stuck down. That's okay. Pull it back up, reglue it, it'll be fine. Because again, it creates definition between my craft base and then my craft layer with the stamping on it and then my craft tag. That helps it all stand out and make each piece unique, well, not unique, but distinct. You can see the separation a little bit more. So I have 2 layers of foam tape because I really wanted that popped up. And just attaching that. And then I'm going to go ahead and I have a, my seam binding is all dyed and dry. And that's ready to go. And I just tied that in a bow. And now I am going ahead and I'm going to attach that with some glossy accents, or you can use any kind of liquid glue, whatever you have that you really like. I like glossy accents for gluing things because it will glue anything and it dries super fast, which is kind of cool. And just put my bow there on the top. And then I'm also going to go ahead and put some glossy accents onto my donut frosting. My husband's favorite donut is chocolate frosted. No sprinkles. If you put sprinkles on his donut, he'll throw it in the trash. He hates it. So that there is that finished card. And so now for the last card that I have, here's another way to add some visual interest to your background. This is a white on white card. This is a very white card. I actually ran, I've got my card base, and then I took another piece of cardstock that was die cut a little bit smaller and ran that through using an embossing folder. So now I've got a dry embossing. I've got this nice texture that's going to be in the background. And then I die cut a piece of vellum, and all I'm doing is adding a little bit of Distress Oxide ink onto the top. Very, very light, keeping that color more concentrated into the middle. And that's just to add the slightest bit of color to this card because this card is very white, very clean. Love it though. Like I love to see that nice texture. It's such a great way to get a nice design on your cards without actually stamping anything, is to use embossing folders because you just get this beautiful texture. So this is a card for my oldest son because he likes cookies, and it's you and me go together like milk and cookies. And so I am stamping that you and me a few times repeatedly in this smaller die cut circle. And these were just cut with some Spellbinders nesting dies. And that's just so you can see a little bit of that text through the background. So another way to add some design onto your cards, you can re-stamp your sentiments repeatedly. You can use that, you can re-stamp your sentiments, and that really even creates, you can create your own designer paper. You can take your sentiments and put them all together in a, on a piece of paper and have use different colors of ink. Oh, that's a good idea. And that's a great way to create your own designer paper and just cut it down and use it on cards. So again, same thing as I did on the other 2 cards, stamping my sentiment onto the vellum. And I did use archival for that because dye inks sometimes don't take a long time to dry on that vellum. And then popping that up with foam tape. And that gives me the perfect place to hide my adhesive. So I'm just going to attach that onto the smaller circle. So I've got my vellum. You can just see that little bit of blue popping out there, which I really like. Of course, clean off your mat if you've got a white card, because ask me how many times I've stuck my white card down in ink on my craft mat. Too many to count. So now I'm adding my embossed piece here, and I'm going to go ahead and use some foam tape to pop up this little circle. Again, so using my circle And you could use any type of die to highlight, kind of give my small image a place to live. So I've really done the same technique on all three cards, added some visual interest in the background, and given my small images a home. And then here I am again doing the same thing, cutting a little flag there in my sentiment and attaching that on with some tape. And that is it for me today. Thank you so much. Don't forget to visit the blog and leave a comment so you can be entered into the drawing for the free stamp set. Here's a look at those three cards again, and there will be more pictures up on my blog. Thanks so much. Enjoy your day. Happy crafting.